Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Giant's Healthy Innovators Live TV. My name is Barry Shrier and I'll be your host. Every week we bring together a group of incredibly interesting and talented and ambitious people who are working at the coal front of healthcare, technology, and innovation. I'm very proud to introduce you to three amazing people today. But before we begin, I just wanted to say thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Vodafone Business. Thank you to McKinsey, our knowledge partner. Thank you to Barclays Bank. And thank you to all of our other media partners. We love working with all of you guys, and we're very, very glad to have your support. And we're keen to continue building bridges with all of you. So my name is Barry Shrier. I'm the founder of Giant Health. Giant is an acronym. It stands for Global Innovation and New Technology. We're a community of nearly 200,000 people around the world, everybody whose business is healthcare, technology, and innovation. We just completed European Health Tech Innovation Week, which took place 2 weeks ago, focusing on tech innovation and advancements in healthcare in 5 leading European cities. Thank you for the many, many thousands of people who dialed in virtually and the many people who came directly to Liverpool in England to join us at European Health Tech Innovation Week. You can learn more about that, and you can learn more about our main Giant Health event coming up in November on our website. So please go to www.giant.health. And we'd love to hear from everybody who's watching this episode. So hello, everybody. Dan, nice to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Barry. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, no, really glad to have you on board. And hi, Kiko. How are you doing today?
Hi, Barry. Thank you very much. I'm doing pretty fine, and thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. No, it's a pleasure. We're very glad to have you on board. And likewise, Edmund, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining today's show.
Hi, Barry. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good stuff. So thanks, everybody. Like I said, when we were warming up, I wish we were all together in a pub, in a beer garden, and I could buy another pint and we could continue this conversation. But we're going to do it just virtually like this for now. So Dan, let's to begin with. What's a big challenge in healthcare? What's a big issue in society and a big challenge in healthcare? And what are you working on?
You know, Barry, I'm a psychiatrist by training, and the thing that has always been evident to me through my training and now through my career is just this massive unmet need of mental illness.
Yes.
Globally, in the US, you know, that anxiety, depression, substance use disorders, these create an enormous interpersonal burden, an enormous societal burden, enormous financial burden. And so in my current role as Chief Medical Officer at MindMed, you know, for the first time, I think I'm sitting in a vehicle that actually may have the sort of momentum it will take to turn the tides a bit.
Yes. Yeah, that's excellent. Mental health, of course, is a big theme which comes up a lot in our weekly TV shows, something which I believe maybe wasn't so strongly recognized maybe 50 or 100 years ago, let alone us having the capability of figuring out what solutions there could be addressed to that. So I'm glad you raised the subject. It's so important and looking forward to discussing that in more detail. So thanks for the initial idea there. Very keen to explore that. And likewise, Kiko, hello. And like I said, we're looking at big challenges in healthcare, big issues in society. What's another example, and what are you involved in?
Okay, so I couldn't be more in agreement with what Dan just said. So mental health is a hot topic, of course, and it's something that needs to be addressed. But besides that, on top of that, I think that we also are facing, in these last times, an equity in access to the healthcare services problem. So that's something that the digital therapeutics could help and support.
Yes.
And of course, if I can mention just a couple of challenges more. For instance, it's actually we are underusing the patient-reported outcomes for managing patients. And that's something that we should take into account because it's demonstrated that even just making the patient using these PROs makes them feel better and have a better control of their lifestyle, and their quality of life is improved as well. And just a final mention to, we are always arguing with the regulators and this era of the artificial intelligence and this kind of technologies. We are facing lack of adaptability from regulatory bodies on how to bring this technology to the routine care at the end of the day to support and to improve patients' quality of life and health.
Yes, yes, exactly. No, huge issues. And we're keen to develop this discussion around digital therapeutics. So glad to have you on board, and let's explore that further. Likewise, Edmund, hello. And we're just beginning with looking at some of the biggest challenges in healthcare, some big issues in society, the opportunity to apply new tech innovation to address them. Tell us about that from your perspective, please.
Sure, thank you, Barry. So during my time as a doctor in the UK, I saw firsthand the issues that you can have with the disconnect between a large number of patients with a chronic, incurable condition and a small number of people trained to deliver therapy for that condition.
Yes.
And a sort of prime example of that is tinnitus. So tinnitus is an incurable condition, sort of commonly experienced as a ringing in the ears. It's not just there for the rest of the week, the rest of the month, but it's there for the rest of your life. And as I'm sure you can imagine, this causes huge discomfort to people.
Sure.
Now, with tinnitus, there is effective treatment available, as with many other incurable conditions.
Oh.
But to access this treatment, you have to wait a long time, because the amount of people that are qualified to give this treatment, there's a disconnect between those. So the problem we're tackling at Otto is we're allowing people to access these treatments using digital therapeutics, and we're solving that sort of that disconnect between a common condition that's very difficult to access the treatment, and allowing people to access that treatment through a digital therapeutic.
Yes. Yeah, excellent. No, very, very interesting. And the point you made about the fact that there might be a significant part of the population which have this condition or are looking for help, a particular treatment, but the how do you say it, the unscalability of individual clinicians. And at Giant Health, of course, our chairman is Professor Shafi Ahmed, a world leader in the application of immersive technologies and virtual reality for medical education. So, of course, traditionally, a doctor, a clinician is trained on a 1-to-1 or 1-to-10, or maybe if you're a junior at med school, 1-to-100 in a big auditorium. But you certainly never get 1 to 25,000 easily in a traditional medical training environment. Whereas obviously with virtual reality, you can be providing training to very, very large numbers. So that, what do you want to call it, that scalability feature of tech innovation, I think is very interesting. Dan, looking at mental health and digital solutions, give us an example, please. We'd love to learn more about this. And are you working on a specific project right now, or a particular initiative?
Yeah, so I can give you both examples of digital therapeutics that have reached the market through regulatory approvals. So the first big digital therapeutic in this sort of modern era to reach the market was a company called Pear, created a product called Reset for substance use disorders, and got FDA clearance to market that.
Wow.
Yeah, and more recently, a company called Nightwear that I was actually helping with, a digital therapeutic based on the Apple Watch. And the therapeutic itself is an app that sits on the Apple Watch and detects nightmares in people with PTSD.
Oh my God.
When it detects a nightmare, it intervenes by buzzing at the wrist. So, the Pear intervention looked a lot like computer cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
The Nightwear intervention looks an awful lot more like a service dog who can detect when its owner is having a nightmare and sort of nuzzle up to interrupt the nightmare. And so I think those two really set up a nice sort of bookends of the sorts of things we can think about when we think about interventions that are predicated on digital for mental illness. Now, of course, what we're working on at MindMed are predominantly psychedelic-inspired medicines, right? So actual pharmaceuticals that support mental health recovery from mental illness via a number of different mechanisms. And when you think about the opportunity for digital coming out of a pharma company, right, that when you integrate digital early in the creation of a pharma company, you can kind of put digital out there in front and be thinking about the opportunities for combination products, right, where a drug and a digital therapeutic actually get a label together.
Yes.
And companion apps where you have an independent digital product that goes along with the drug. And you've seen examples of those in the marketplace before. So I think our range of what we can prosecute gets very, very large by those combinations of drug and digital.
Yes, yeah, exactly. No, very good examples. I hadn't heard of the example with the Apple Watch and the intervention with nightmares. That's extremely interesting. Love to learn more about that. And it's so interesting to see how these innovations are developing. So, Kiko, does that overlap with what you're working on, or any other examples you'd like to share with us?
Yes, it's overlaps, I guess, from the side of the mental health mostly, but how we are seeing or foreseeing the digital therapeutics is not only a mobile application or a smartwatch application, but a holistic service that may include also coaching for patients,
Right.
make the treatment more personalized, to address which are the specific challenges and the specific needs that every person is facing along their patient journey.
Yes.
We are talking about chronic conditions mainly.
Okay.
Not everybody lives the same disease with the same needs, and that's something very important for us to focus on the personalization of the therapy at the right moment, the right time, and to address the right need. That's something very important for us. But on top of the comment of mental health, that's one of the key areas, of course, that digital therapeutics can address and can have a big impact.
Sure.
But also, it's a very big opportunity for healthcare providers to understand better what's happening to their patients, because currently they only see what's happening from visit to visit, and they are losing all the information that's happening in between. So this ability of reporting this PROs, personal patient reported outcomes, to embed it into a digital solution that can be used every day, and on the other end can be monitored by the healthcare professional. That's something that is completely new, and as it's under release, as I mentioned before.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think a big challenge traditionally, especially for pharma, is this intimate understanding of individual patients, isn't it? From the beginning of, is the patient taking the pill as prescribed or not, to the result and the impact. And it's not a criticism of pharma; it's just a fact in terms of the large numbers of patients and society and the costs involved and that type of thing. So I guess the digital opportunity here is vast in the personalization, Kiko, like you just mentioned. And does that relate with you, Edmund? Is there a personalization element to what you guys are working on? And is that a core part of the digital proposition for you?
Absolutely. The personalization is a critical importance, really. And I think the reason why is because we want to replicate face-to-face therapy as close as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So a number of sort of digital therapeutics out there at the moment that are sort of more sort of on the technology facing side of things. But if you think of a condition like tinnitus that actually affects people, it affects older people more than younger people.
Yeah.
Which means that these people are less likely to be accustomed and already used to using these new technologies like chatbots, for example, which means that we need to find a way to deliver the therapy to them digitally in a way that much more accurately represents the therapy that they would get from a face-to-face therapist. And one of the ways that we can do that is of course personalization. If you go and see a therapist, that therapy will be personalized to you. In the first consultation, they'll work out which areas that you need more help with. And the way we're doing that, the way we're doing that with Otto is the first sort of challenge is making it as accurate to face-to-face therapy as we can. So the way we deliver our therapy is via voice recorded sessions. And it's very simple. So you literally open the app, put your headphones on, press play, and there's a recorded voice talking to you as if you were as a therapist would take you through the therapy. But the second point of that is the personalization aspect as well. So I'll use tinnitus as an example. Tinnitus can affect a whole number of different walks of life. So mental health is very important to mention, but sleep, concentration, and a number of other things.
Sure.
So it's really important for us to be able to tailor the therapy to be able to help with those specific things that the tinnitus is having an impact on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that combination of the voice delivered therapy and then delivering specific sessions,
Exactly.
depending on what area they need help with, that's one of the sort of the challenges that we're having, so the problem that we're trying to tackle.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's extremely interesting and very relevant. So fascinating to hear more about that. Thank you. What about business models? We have this new world of digital therapies, which is slightly different from what existed historically. And it's piggybacking, isn't it, on the growth of the internet, the growth of smartphones, the growth of connectivity, the lowering cost of all these devices and services. But are there straightforward business models? What's your experience, Dan? It's not like a pharma company, is it? I mean, we're not talking about vast investments in molecular discovery and how to fold proteins, which takes 15 years, and placing many billion-dollar bets and hoping that a few of them pan out, or are we still in that kind of world?
You know, the pharma world seemed a lot clearer a few years ago too, right? There weren't politicians debating drug pricing and things like this. So even in the spaces that once seemed entirely clear, I'm not sure that clarity has persisted as much as we might imagine.
No, it's a good point.
The reality is that we kind of know how to sell drugs, right? We know where to pick them up. We know how to get them prescribed. We've immense amount of system around all of that. So much so drug pricing is almost intractably confusing, right? Nobody really understands why a drug costs this at one store and this at a different store. But it's worked, right? It's made pharma companies able to make a lot of money from manufacturing, advertising, and selling drugs.
Yes.
Digital's not there yet, right? Those distribution channels aren't well worn. The pricing models aren't fully established. There are a lot of unknowns that I think, as other folks on the call here will probably agree, have made fundraising a little bit tricky, because you're trying to paint a picture of a future world where your product works, but you can't quite say in 3 or 5 years what compensation will look like for digital therapeutics.
Sure.
And we've seen that play out with the companies that have been able to bring things to market. There are a couple of really favorable signs. There are certain large payer systems or payer provider systems that are showing a real appetite to get digital therapeutics out to their members.
Yeah.
And we've seen movement from centralized payers here in the States, Medicare specifically, to mandate coverage for any new digital therapeutic that has breakthrough status, which is treating something that hasn't previously been adequately addressed. But
right.
There's another opportunity here that I think may be actually the critical one, and it sort of goes back to what Kiko was saying about real monitoring, real time, at home, understanding the patient's life, which is that you've heard a lot of talk over the last, 8 to 10 years about value-based care, right? That we should be compensating care providers, medication makers, device makers, based on the value they bring to the patient, and by bringing that value to the patient, the value they bring to society, right? Because ultimately, healthcare costs sort of roll downhill, and ultimately we bear them as a society.
Yes.
What these digital devices bring that we haven't had with a medicine is a feedback loop, where you know what the digital device is seeing, how it's intervening, when it's intervening. All of these data can be brought back and centralized. And with digital monitoring, you start to get into the ability to actually measure the hard part of value, right? Value is just benefit of the product, right? Medical benefit or societal benefit of the product per cost.
Yes.
We're really good at measuring cost because cost is just defined by dollars. We made up how we measure cost, right? It's completely a human invention.
Sure.
The concept of a person being better, that's not artificial. That's not something we just invented. That's a real thing in the world that we've historically been pretty bad at measuring. And so I think a lot of the value capture, and ultimately then the pricing models for these sorts of digital devices, is going to be through that measurement, the ability to define what it looks like when someone is better, not just maybe from their primary symptoms, but functional better, right? Or maybe it's not just function, and function sort of speaks to, can I do the things I want to do? But could we even get at, does someone want to do things that they didn't want to do before, and now they can do things that they didn't even know they wanted to do? And all of this wraps back around into the reality that we have to face as sort of digital folks in medicine, which is that we haven't measured very well in medicine to date, right? When we get good at measuring certain things, we create new diseases. Hypertension, essential hypertension, wasn't a disease state until we got really good at measuring blood pressure and looked at what happened to people over time if their blood pressure was a bit elevated. You don't feel your blood pressure when it's 140/80. We've got to measure it to know that that's a clinical state that predicts a bad outcome. And so we're right on the verge here of being able to start to do that with continuous at-home digital measurement, to actually define new disease states that predict future disease states. And if you treat earlier, you can treat less and get better outcomes.
Yes, exactly. No, a very, very good point. And I'm intrigued about this because one could argue, well, the more you measure, the more you find things which, in fact, are not invented, but the consequence of excessive medicalization, so to speak. But that's not necessarily the case, and I don't think that's what you're getting at all. So very, very interesting. And this ability to move from sick care, which of course is what the current world is all about. Healthcare, in fact, is sick care, to preventative, earlier diagnosis and patient management, and that feedback loop. Very, very interesting. And it certainly points to me to an unbelievably exciting future regarding digital and intervention in this type of thing. Kiko, tell us a little bit more about what's going on with you, and tell us, please, we just want to go around and hear more about your actual work and what you guys have coming up this year.
Okay, so before answering, I'd like to make a comment because I guess that the comparison that you made with the pharma company and the digital therapies company is not that far from each other, because here at Adhera Health, what we use a term which is digital active principle. And indeed, we invest a lot of resources and time and clinical trials to demonstrate the effectiveness of our digital therapies. So that's not, we are in the digital world, but at the end of the day, it's following the same process than the pharma company.
Right.
So what I can tell you about what we are doing right now is that we are moving ahead with FDA validation or clearance, for one of our first products for supporting breast cancer survivors.
Yes.
And yes, and we are based in the same pillars that I was mentioned before. So we need to know who is the person behind of that disease. We are not treating diseases; we are treating people.
Okay.
We need to exactly know which are the needs that they have. And for that, we need to understand how are they performing in the daily activities, what's their behavior, what's their lifestyle.
Yes.
So we can provide advice, and once we understand that, we can provide some advices and tips on the right direction to empower them, to support them having better lifestyle choices, and basically to at the end of the day, what we want them is to better self-manage their symptoms, their conditions that they have related to their disease.
Exactly.
And for that, we are actually embedding, and I think that Dan already commented on this, that they are based more or less in the same principle, which is a CBT-based intervention.
Okay.
Which is called cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
And we embed this intervention in our mobile application for the patients, let's say. But we have this personalization based on artificial intelligence profiling, that it works, let's say, like Netflix. I guess that you know that Netflix knows which are the series and TVs that you like most. So we are making a similar approach to this personalization and to make personal recommendations to each one of these patients. All of this embedded in this CBT approach. So basically, that's what we are working on right now.
Excellent.
And we are moving ahead with lots of pilots, and hopefully sooner than later we will have this first rollout commercial deployment that we are making some advances in that.
Excellent. No, superb. This theme that Dan mentioned about trying to get into the measurement of value for the patient, and then perhaps, if it's possible, the value for society more broadly. Is that something, Kiko, you guys are looking at? What exactly do you try to measure in terms of the outcomes and the value of the input for the patient?
Yes, well, we don't have only one outcome metric that we are looking at, but of course we are looking in this specific oncology solution for breast cancer survivors.
Right.
We are looking into the mental distress related variables like anxiety, stress, what's happening in my life now that I don't have an active treatment. Will I have a relapse? So the fear of a recurrence, it's always there. We are acting on those parameters, but also in the hormonal treatment adherence. It's a very big issue, and it's like when I understood it, it was like, wow, it's incredible that you have gone through a cancer treatment, you're a survivor, but you are not being adherent to the treatment. How is it possible? So there are lots of side effects of the hormonal treatment, and that this is something that is, let's say, burdening this adherence of these patients. And we are also promoting lifestyle changes and also empowering these patients in terms of their resilience and how to deal with those side effects. So at the end of the day, they can adhere to the treatment and they can, let's say, improve their quality of life by completing the actual treatment.
No, very interesting. Thanks for clarifying that. And it's such an important area, and it's great to see what you guys are working on. Dan, we're looking at what's happening in healthcare over the next few years and the potential for impact with digital therapeutics. A comment has come to our attention over the past few months about the cornerstone position that the pharma industry has in healthcare, and whether or not digital therapies are a challenge for them or a potential valuable complement for them. Are DTX like a mosquito on the back of an elephant, or is it actually the potential for a Kodak moment for a big pharma business? So I'm certainly unclear about these issues, and I have heard a lot of commentary about how the revenue opportunities that currently are presenting themselves in digital therapeutics are so astronomically insignificant, if I can mix some metaphors there, that it just is barely scratching the surface of any levels of interest with pharma. So my question is about the next few years and where you see the DTX and more broadly, digital interventions, and where that fits in the bigger landscape of the provision of healthcare reimbursement and this type of thing.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and everyone always looks to say where's big pharma going on some new thing in healthcare, because the investment of time, energy, money that a big pharma can throw behind something is absolutely enormous, particularly
Yes.
in the sort of construct of the amounts of money that digital therapeutics companies are raising and running on, and even as Kiko said, getting through healthcare authority facing trials and validation and getting labels. And so what I see from the inside is an increasing appetite and willingness to participate in this world from the traditional big pharmas. Every pharma is different. Each of them behaves differently. Each of them is populated by folks with different interests and different focuses. But there are certainly some that have taken a very public-facing stance that says they support this. And there are some who've even taken a combination product through to get a combination product label. So there's clearly this growing interest. And then behind the scenes, where you're not seeing things in press releases, what I can tell you from working with and advising many of these companies is what you see is sort of the tip of a very large iceberg. Wow. And right under the surface, there is enormous and growing interest at all levels in essentially every pharma company to get in on this in one way or another. And what that looks like on a company by company basis is going to be enormously different based on therapeutic areas of interest and things like this. Yes. But we do know, as evidenced by therapeutic area strategies shifting the way they do, that pharma companies, despite being very large, can make very abrupt turns.
Okay.
And so where we haven't seen specific announcements out of particular companies, I think we will. And the COVID crisis created many pressures in healthcare.
Absolutely.
Right? Created enormous pressure on the provider level, particularly providers who were tasked with taking care of COVID patients in overstretched systems, where digital innovation ended up likely saving many lives, with new sorts of ventilators being built and new sorts of monitoring equipment being brought to bear. The pressure it put on pharma drug developers was, how do I take trials that have historically been done with and at sites and move them away from sites, let people stay home and try to get the same information from them? And so we saw a very rapid transition to at-home monitoring, to tele visits for assessments and things like this, to remote delivery of medication product or placebo in many cases.
Yes.
So those pressures, and the drug developers are not generally thought of as being folks who are eager to make many changes at once, right? The most important thing during a drug development paradigm is getting to an approval.
Yes.
So when you bring things to a healthcare authority, you want to bring the sorts of evidence that they're familiar with.
Exactly.
And if a drug in your class has historically been developed by going to a site and having a site do certain procedures, you're going to want to do that. The need to make change during COVID made people a little more brave in many ways.
Oh, okay.
And you saw sort of the adoption of technology that hadn't historically been used in trials, because everybody felt like, well, we have to do it to keep patients safe, to keep them from going into sites, and to keep our trial moving. And we've got a good reason to do it, because safety. And so when we go have our conversation with FDA or EMA or whomever, we can explain, here's what we thought we had to do, here's what we actually did, here are the data that came back, and here's why we think these data are reliable enough for you to make a choice. And that will now, I think, of pharma development, right? Where you have clinical developers who now have quickly gotten comfortable with certain new technologies, that ought to permeate all of their thinking. And what we're hearing from colleagues in the field and from our friends in pharma is, yeah, that's the sort of change that's happening.
Excellent news, actually. I mean, of course, the pandemic has been a horrible crisis and a tragedy for millions around the world, but the fact that this might serve as a catalyst for accelerating the adoption of new technologies and possibly the sweeping away of unnecessary levels of bureaucracy and that type of thing is very attractive. So, no, very interesting picture. How about for you, Kiko? What's your experience regarding the pandemic and regulatory and large business attitudes towards innovation?
Yes, to be honest, the pandemic in our case also made us stop, stand, and rethink several things. Because yes, we had at our fingertips the opportunity to have a very big impact and a very new condition that nobody was sure what were going to be the symptoms, the prevalence. So some things that we have already been disclosing with the time, even though some of those, for instance, what's happening with long COVID, that's something. That's something that it's we are seeing symptoms related to fatigue, which something in some cases similar to COPD, severe COPD patients, but they don't respond to the same treatment. So we are also seeing some mental issues like this brain fog, something like that is called, that is affecting at different sites, at different levels of person. And we strongly believe that we have the opportunity to bring some relief to these patients, to help them live with their new condition, because it's unknown, because there's no evidence what's going to happen in 5 years' time. But we are seeing cases with more than 1 year standing the same symptoms, and they are not improving, so they need to manage them somehow. So here the DTX is also a good choice, and it has a good opportunity to make an impact in this disease. And for our company, we thought about that, and we have started and will be launching a solution that we are already piloting for this long COVID. We'll be launching it I guess, in the several months, in the next year, maybe, as soon as we are completing the trials.
Nice.
So, because as I mentioned before, we are not focusing on specific disease. Of course, we need to be aware which are the specific needs and specific symptoms that are reflected on people suffering from a specific disease, but we are focusing on people. And when you are dealing with, for instance, cancer-related approach to a preventive approach in the medicine,
absolutely,
without a doubt.
No, 100%. The theme of the patient, how do you say it, self-managing is just profoundly important. I mean, presuming it's possible, obviously, depending on the therapeutic area. But the need that we have across society to encourage people to take more responsibility for their health and not wait until they are unwell to phone the doctor and this type of thing. I personally see that as a fundamental requirement, bearing in mind that the cost of the delivery of healthcare cannot continue to grow as they are, and the challenges in society more broadly with new diseases and new challenges and that type of thing. So Kiko, that theme of figuring out how to encourage and motivate and monitor the self-management for patients, I think, is profoundly important. Hey, well, look, you guys, unfortunately, we don't have too much time, but we'll wrap up over the next few minutes, if that's okay. And so, Dan, we'd love to just ask a little bit more about, you and what you're doing in your business and whether or not you have any asks for our community.
Yeah, so, MindMed recently acquired my previous company, Health Mode, and Health Mode was entirely dedicated to understanding medical conditions better through digital measurement. Now with MindMed, we are building a platform that will enable us to practice and to enable the practice of precision psychiatry, the precise delivery of the right medicine at the right time, better therapy delivered in the right way by the right person at the right time, things like relapse prediction, so we can treat for prevention rather than in response to relapse. But all of that adds up to, I think, a really important message. In many ways, psychiatry forgot what it was capable of, right? If you think about the birth of modern psychiatry for anxiety, depression, remember what Freud was doing was curing neurological illness with his voice. He wasn't targeting mild symptom improvement at 4 and 8 weeks. Now we got to do mild symptom improvement at 4 and 8 weeks because we got to go show something to FDA, and hopefully we can show massive symptom improvement at 4 and 8 weeks, of course. But the ultimate goal here can't be just mild pushing down amelioration of symptoms, right?
Okay.
The goal of psychiatry has to be enabling people to truly feel and be better, and to live better lives, to have the lives they want, to aspire to the things they once aspired to. I think what MindMed and this entire psychedelic thing that's happening in psychiatry right now offers is a return to a concept of psychiatry where you actually get better, right? Where you don't just go to therapy for the rest of your life so your symptoms can be a little better right after you leave the therapist's office.
Yes.
You can do hard work.
Yes.
With psychedelic assistance, with therapeutic assistance, to actually get better. And that's the opportunity I think we have here.
I agree. No, 100%. And that's very motivating and uplifting vision, which we certainly subscribe to. Lastly, Dan, do you have any asks to our community? Are you guys fundraising or launching new products or looking for trial partners or anything at all?
Well, we've got a lot of things going on. We've certainly got clinical trials that are both running and clinical trials that are starting. So you can, if you're someone who suffers from anxiety or substance use disorder or any of these sorts of things, keep an eye on our trials. We announce them when we launch them, and we have a trials section going up on the website.
Excellent.
So attend to that. We're hiring as well. So if you're someone who wants to work, works in pharmaceutical development or digital development or has a history working with psychedelics, keep an eye on our careers page and take a look, because we're certainly growing the company. And then just stay tuned into what we're up to. We're going to be launching lots of new things over coming weeks and months, and so we'll need folks who want to participate in research mostly.
Brilliant.
To participate at scale, because we need that sort of level of participation in our research to be able to fuel the AI models that are going to build out our deeper understanding of the interrelationships between phenotypes, genotypes, microbiome, the sorts of things that actually will bring us toward precision psychiatry and a deeper understanding of these diseases.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. Remind all of our listeners around the world of your website address, please.
It is mindmed.co.
Perfect. Mindmed.co.
That's right.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you, Dan. And Kiko, like I said, of course, we're just wrapping up now. So if you can just share with us, do you have any ask of our community, anything that you're looking to accomplish, or any announcements you'd like to share?
Yes, well, as a final thought, given that my background as a data scientist, I'd like to remind to the public that I guess that it's very smart, of course, but at the end of the day, what enables us to improve the life of patients through digital therapeutics is the data, and we need data of quality, and that's something that we didn't have up to I'd say 5-10 years ago, depending on the geographical location that you are. But until the digitalization of the healthcare delivery has not reached,
Yes.
we were not able to exploit all this information, and we were not able to personalize everything. And basically, yes, a final, let's say, comment to the audience. We are hiring as well. We're looking from R&D managers to people for the development and the technical development. I mean, back end, front end, those kind of jobs. We are always looking for talent, and we are also looking forward to make some, let's say, sorry. We are looking forward for making some partnerships in the United States with hospitals and so on, because we have a lot of things that we want to deploy in very short time, and we need as much partners as possible.
Yes, excellent. Well, look, Kiko, we would love to develop this discussion with you. And as you know, Giant Health is a global community. We have substantial contacts in many hospital groups across the USA. So let's take that conversation forward after this show. And very happy to help you with those types of introductions.
Okay, thank you. That sounds great.
Great. And hello, Edmund.
Hello, I'm so sorry.
A little bit about your product and your business, and what's your vision for the future? What do you guys have in mind to accomplish over the next year or two?
So we're a very new company, and we launched our product in December last year. We want to expand internationally, and we want to really focus on two key areas. And the first is, of course, improving the product and building a product that has a significant impact on the lives of people with tinnitus. And in order to do that, we need to put a lot of resources and energy into research and development, and building new features, researching new technologies, and understanding how these can be used to improve the lives of people with tinnitus. And the second area that we want to focus on is partnerships. So we know already that the product we've built has an impact on the lives of people with tinnitus on an individual level, but we also want to partner with institutions, and we want to partner with institutions all over the world to be able to deliver our therapeutic at an institutional level, so that patients can have tinnitus therapy free at the point of use through our application.
Fabulous. Remind all of our audience, please, Edmund, of your website.
So it's www.joinotto.com, Otto with one T.
Excellent. Hey, look at Edmund. This has been so interesting. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and good luck with your work. And of course, as you know, we're a global community of investors and clinicians and people involved in developments for DTX and a lot of other things in healthcare. So if there's anything that you want to ask of the community, don't hesitate to come back to us, and we can share that, for example, in our weekly newsletter.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we're just always, of course, looking for people to try the app and give feedback on the app. As I mentioned, we're undergoing lots of research, and also connections with institutions and hospitals, particularly within the United States as well, where we're looking to expand over the next 18 months.
Brilliant. Okay, no, we'd love to help and share that with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barry. Much appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Edmund. All the best.
Yeah, really sorry about the connection issue. It's never happened to me before, so I'm just bad timing, I think.
No worries. Nothing to worry about. We'll wrap up now. Thank you. Thanks, Edmund.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Barry. Bye.
I would also like to thank all of our sponsors. Thanks once again to our knowledge partner, McKinsey & Company. Thank you to Vodafone Business and Barclays Bank International. We love working with all of our partners and our media partners, and we're really grateful for your support. I'd also like to direct all of our listeners once again to the Giant website. That's www.giant.health, where you can learn about the Giant Health event, which is coming up in November. That's what Financial Times refers to as Europe's largest, most valuable annual healthcare innovation event. So we certainly hope to hear from everybody. There's lots of opportunities for speakers, for exhibitors, for sponsors. We welcome you contacting us, and we'd love to explore how we can partner. One more thing, we'd like to thank our media partner, which is Startups Magazine. So for example, if you're looking for more stories from inspirational entrepreneurs, check out the Serial Entrepreneur from Startups Magazine. That's a print and digital publication that champions tech startups. Here, their editor, Anna Flockett, interviews the most innovative startups from the moment with some startups lessons and startup fables, as well as a sprinkling of inspirational advice. You can find them by searching the Serial Entrepreneur into any streaming service or by going to startupsmagazine.co.uk. So thank you to our media partner, Startups Magazine. We love working with you guys, and we're very keen to build our partnership with you. Once again, my name is Barry Shrier. This has been this week's episode of Healthy Innovators Live TV. You hope you find it interesting, and we're keen to keep in touch with you, so don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much.